If you ever walk past an old photograph in your house and see someone talking to it, don't assume they've lost their mind. Sometimes they're just holding on to the only conversation they have left. My grandmother spoke to my grandfather's photo every single night for 22 years, and I didn't understand why until the night she finally stopped. I grew up in a quiet Pennsylvania town where nothing really changed. Same church bells on Sunday, same diner on Main Street, same neighbours who waved like it was still 1985. And at the end of Maple Drive stood my grandmother's house. White siding, blue shutters, porch swing that creaked in the wind. Inside that house, time had frozen the day my grandfather died. He passed away in 1999. Heart attack, sudden, no warning. They had been married for 43 years. 43 years of shared coffee cups, shared arguments, shared dreams. And then, one morning, just one coffee cup. At first, Grandma didn't cry much. She handled the funeral calmly, thanked people for the casseroles, smiled politely at condolences. But at night, everything changed. I was 10 the first time I saw it. I had stayed over for the weekend. Around midnight, I woke up thirsty and walked down the hallway. That's when I heard her voice. Soft, gentle, almost cheerful. "Good night, Robert," she said. I peeked around the corner. She was standing in the living room, in front of Grandpa's framed photograph on the fireplace, talking to it, like he was right there. "I watered the roses today," she continued. "Your Yankees lost again." "I finally fixed that loose cabinet hinge." Then she leaned forward and kissed the glass. I ran back to bed, confused. The next morning I asked Mum, "Why does Grandma talk to Grandpa's picture?" Mum sighed. "Because love doesn't just disappear." But as I grew older, I started to worry. Years passed, and Grandma never missed a night. Birthdays, snowstorms, power outages. Every single night at 10 p.m, she stood in front of that photo and updated him about her day. In high school, I found it embarrassing. When friends came over, I'd close the living room door. I didn't want them hearing her whispering to a picture. I thought it meant she couldn't move on. I thought it meant she was stuck. I was wrong. When I turned 21, I moved to Chicago for college. Big city, fast life, no time for small-town rituals. I called Grandma once a week, every Sunday. And every Sunday she'd ask, "Are you eating enough? Are you sleeping? Are you happy?" And at the end of every call she'd say, "I'll tell your grandfather about it tonight." I used to laugh. Now I wish I hadn't. One winter break I came home unexpectedly. Snow covered Maple Drive. The house looked smaller than I remembered. Inside, everything was the same, except Grandma moved slower. Her hands trembled slightly when she poured tea. That night I stayed up on purpose. 10 p.m. She walked to the fireplace. But this time, her voice wasn't cheerful. It cracked. "Robert, I'm tired." Silence filled the room. "I don't know how much longer I can do this without you." My chest tightened. For the first time I understood. She wasn't pretending he was alive. She was surviving without him. The photo wasn't denial. It was connection. It was ritual. It was grief that had softened into companionship. A few months later, she fell ill. Nothing dramatic at first, just fatigue, then hospital visits, then machines. I sat beside her bed one evening. She looked at me and whispered, "Did I ever tell you how he proposed?" I shook my head. She smiled faintly. "He didn't have a ring, just a borrowed car and a nervous voice. He said, 'I don't have much, but I promise I'll stay.'" A tear rolled down her cheek. He kept that promise. The night before she passed, I went back to her house to grab some clothes. The living room felt different, still, quiet. I looked at Grandpa's photo. For the first time in 22 years, no one stood in front of it at 10 p.m. No voice, no whisper, no good night. She passed peacefully the next morning, in her sleep. No struggle, no fear, just stillness. After the funeral, I returned to Maple Drive alone. The house was emptier than I'd ever seen it. I walked to the fireplace, picked up Grandpa's photo. Behind the frame was something folded. A letter, written in Grandma's handwriting. It said, "Robert, if you're reading this, it means I finally joined you. I kept talking to you all these years, not because I was lonely, but because I was grateful. Grateful we had something worth missing. I'll see you soon. Save me a seat." I didn't cry loudly. I just sat there, holding proof that love doesn't end with death. It transforms. I took both photos, Grandpa's and Grandma's. Now they sit side by side in my apartment in Chicago. Sometimes, when life gets loud, I stand in front of them and I talk. Not because I think they answer, but because love deserves to be spoken. If you still have someone you love, don't wait until they're just a photograph. Speak now, listen now, forgive now. Because one day, you might be the one standing in front of a frame, whispering into silence.